Perfect. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Medical Marijuana and Wellness webinar series this quarter, this is a new series this quarter where we're going to be introducing a number of wellness products into the lineup of seminars. Naturally, you can go to our website, Marijuana Aware, and you'll be able to see all the different webinars that we're putting on. But tonight, we have a very special one. It's on a product called spermidineLIFE. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Don Moxley for a number of years and working with him on a number of projects. And he's found actually a very, very interesting product that I think, especially for people like myself that are seniors, it's extremely timely. So I am going to introduce Don and let him tell you about himself. And I'd like to point out to everybody that the objective of these webinars is not only to educate you, but also to allow you to ask questions. And please feel free to do that. Now, if you look at the bottom of your screen over here, you'll see a little Q&A button. And please feel free to ask questions. That's what we're here for. And type in the questions, and we'll try to answer the questions either during the webinar if it's appropriate, and definitely we'll answer the questions before the end of the webinar. There is a chat button that's over here, and typically we reserve that for internal chats and things like that. We pay a lot of attention to the Q&A button. So if you have a question, please let us know on the Q&A side. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you on this nice, lovely evening here in Central Florida to be able to have a great webinar that hopefully we'll talk about longevity, anti-aging, and things like that. So I'd like to introduce a gentleman named Don Moxley. And Don, you're with spermidineLIFE, so tell us about yourself and tell us what you do.
Thanks, Mark. And so for the audience, I appreciate you spending some time with us. My name is Don Moxley. I'm trained as an exercise physiologist. I've spent about 25 of the last 35 years as either an adjunct or an assistant professor teaching the exercise sciences. But back in 2018, I had the opportunity to actually move to Florida and work in the cannabis business. That's how Mark and I met. But I left that. I'm coming to you tonight from Central Ohio. I live in a little town called Granville, Ohio, which is just outside of Columbus. And one of the guys I worked with in Florida, we had the opportunity to work with Longevity Labs, which is an Austrian company spinning up this product that's called spermidineLIFE. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight.
You know, I know Europe has done a lot of work on, I'll call them holistic medicines and holistic remedies and supplements, really. And I think this is one of them. I know I lived in Switzerland for 5 years and worked in Europe for over 15, and in Paris as well as most of the central the countries in Europe itself. But they also were very big on not only the holistic side, but also the quality of those products. And I think this is a testament to that. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, there's no doubt. In fact, one of the challenges that we've had, so our product comes from Austria. We're located in Graz, Austria. A lot of the research that supports spermidine research comes from the University of Graz. And we have a good connection there. But we would like to formulate this product in the United States, but we're struggling to do it because we can't find enough glyphosate free wheat. And we'll talk about where our product comes from in a little bit, but right now we're only able to source it with Central European wheat germ.
Sure. Well, Don, without let's not steal your thunder. You have some information, some slides you'd like to show. Again, we're not trying to make this a slideware webinar. We're trying to make this an interactive webinar. So please feel free to ask questions. But the slides are really here to show you what Don's put together, what spermidineLIFE is, and also to spur some questions. So Don, please share your screen and tell us a little bit about spermidineLIFE.
Okay. Are we up?
You are up.
Okay. So the company is called Longevity Labs, and longevity is an interesting animal. We'll talk about that. You know, we talk about anti-aging, and one of the challenges, you kind of want to age. That means you're breathing and waking up every day and you're doing well. When you stop aging, it's usually problematic, and we don't want to go there, but we want longevity to improve all the time. And when we think of longevity, you know, we're talking about living, we're talking about life. And as we define this more, you know, life, we think of life as more than just the time between birth and death. We break it into three big areas, and we call it the 3 thirds, but we spend roughly the first third of our life learning in school and getting ready to move into our second third, which is really about serving others, whether it's family or work or things like that, but we tend to be in the service of others. But it's this third that we look at, and it's that time of your life when you get to take a trip of a lifetime, or when you're able to go to your children's marriages, and seeing your grandkids and your great grandkids being born. This is that when we start thinking about longevity, we're thinking about not just how many, getting more days out of our life, but we want to talk about getting more life out of our days. And this is important. We're really talking about pushing what we call health span. And when we look at longevity, this is what we start to look at. Now, we're not unique in this, in that when you go look at the literature and you look at the science, one of the earliest articles I could find on life extension in history came from Anti-Aging magazine. And in it, they cited that there was this Italian nobleman, Luigi Cornaro, in 1550 wrote the book, The Art of Living Long. And Luigi talked about that individuals were not just destined to die at 60 and 70, but with good care and good constitution could live extremely long lives. And he attributed to the principle of moderation in all things. Now, I like to go a little bit past that and not be so judgmental, but what does the science say about longevity? And when we look at the science, we saw an interesting thing happen in the early 1930s up at Cornell University. And there was a researcher up there, Dr. Clive McKay, and Dr. McKay found him, he had to make a hard decision. He had a big research lab, but he didn't have enough money to feed all of his research mice a full diet. So he had to make a decision. So he separated his mice. He fed half of them a full diet, but he cut back the calories on, trying to keep them alive, but at the same time save the food. But what he found in his research is that the mice that got the calorie restricted diets did better than the mice eating the full diet. And this was really one of the first big research findings in longevity. And it was published, again, it wasn't really recognized as the value of the research for nearly 50 years. But this was published in the 30s. And what we see from the research is that this concept of calorie restriction, it's the only experimental manipulation that's known to extend lifespan in a number of organisms. And we'll talk about what we call model organisms that we use in research. The model organisms, we start with yeast, bread yeast. We work our way through worms and flies and rodents. And people ask, why do we do this? And there's a really good researcher in the area, David Sinclair. He said, if we can't solve the problem of longevity in yeast, we don't have a shot at figuring out in humans. So when we look at model organisms, this is what we see working our way through. And one of the unique things about calorie restriction is it works in all model organisms. And this is the reason the rise of the value of fasting in humans has become so popular. Now,
I think it also led to things like looking at gluten-free diets and things like that, didn't it?
Yeah, dietary selection, exactly. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But when we start looking at calorie restriction, can we starve ourselves to immortality? And you kind of see this the satire there. But when we look at longevity research, we look at three big areas. First thing we look at is we study people who live long. You've probably heard about blue zones. These are areas around the world where we have populations that are living longer than the populations around them because of things they eat or things they do. So it's one of the first things we look at. Then we study other animals who live long. And this can be anywhere from tortoises to bowfront to I think it's called the bowfront whale. There's a mouse. There's a mouse type that's called a naked mole rat, and a naked mole rat is a lot like a mouse, other than the fact it lives almost 10 times longer. And when we look at the cells of the naked mole rat, they tend to be very high in spermidine. Naked mole rats don't die of the same things mice do. And so when we start to see that spermidine level there, we start to ask questions. And we experiment with animals first. So we do experimental trials, and we start with yeast and we work our way through, all the way up through the model organisms. And this is how we do longevity research. Now, Mark, you were just talking about when we're looking at different dietary changes. And when we look at dietary restriction, there's a couple ways that we can restrict our diet. One is we can limit the amount of time that we eat. This is what's called intermittent fasting. We can limit the number of calories that we eat. So we limit the volume that we eat, or we can limit particular parts of our diet, whether it be certain amino acids or eliminating gluten or all these things. But these are all types of dietary restriction. And when we look at those, and particularly when we look at their action, what we start to see is this word starts to emerge called autophagy. Now, autophagy, when we define it, stands for the term self-eating. So in a cell, when a cell engages in autophagy, it's looking inside itself and it's saying, hey, what in here am I not using that is not providing any benefit, and can I use it some other way? So can autophagy promote longevity? And what we see is that when you do the dietary restriction and your body says, hey, we need energy, but we don't see it coming from food, the body will then engage a process in its cells called autophagy. And it starts looking around the cell, and there's what we call long-lived proteins. So there'll be proteins in there that were generated but are no longer valuable. Or there'll be organelles. There'll be parts of the cell that are no longer working. And with autophagy, it digests those parts of the cell and puts them back into use through normal metabolism. So longevity promoting regimens, including calorie restriction. And then we're not going to talk about mTOR and rapamycin, but the natural polyamine spermidine was shown to be associated with autophagy. And this was one of the big discoveries that we had. And what we found was that clearing cellular damage by autophagy is a common denominator of many lifespan extending manipulations. So this was a really big paper on this when we started to see, so what does calorie restriction do? It triggers autophagy. Autophagy is what delivers the lifespan extended benefits. And I'm not going to go completely through this slide, but as we increase autophagy, we see a number of intracellular processes that are kicked up that eventually lead to longevity or that improved quality of life.
So what you're basically saying is through autophagy, although one option is just restricting your diet, but by being able to promote this within your body, you're being able to increase longevity.
Yeah, so not only do we increase days of life, but that's what we call lifespan, but we also increase health span. And health span is that the ability to maintain quality of life without a bunch of investment in the healthcare system. As the health span line moves away from the lifespan line, if we graft it, it gets expensive. Yeah. And so the more we can maintain health span, the more we improve that third of our life. Mm-hmm. So again, we're going to keep looking at the research here. So we look at autophagy mediates pharmacological lifespan extension with spermidine and resveratrol. You'll hear that talked about. We focus on spermidine. We're not sure resveratrol holds up quite as well going into humans. And other papers that we take a look at, particularly this one. So this was a review paper that was done on spermidine. And you know what? I should have said something earlier because people ask about where does spermidine come from? It's a molecule that's in every cell of your body, men, women, animals, plants. And what we know is that it declines with age. So the longer you live, the more the spermidine declines. But what we know is that people who live well into their subcentenarian or centenarian ages tend to have spermidine levels similar to those in their 30s and 40s. So this was an important part. So in this review article, which is a great article if you're a scientific person, you start to
point out a lot of these articles we're going to make available after as a follow-up. We'll set up a web page that people can go look at these if they wish.
Yeah, we'll give them for a bibliography. Absolutely. Now, in this, what we see, and I'm going to move this image around just a little bit. In this article, it talks about 6 particular areas. So we've already talked about autophagy, and what we know now is spermidine stimulates autophagy. It's a critical step in that pathway. And as spermidine levels drop, the autophagy process drops. So what we know is it supports there. Now, what we see for instance, in tumor suppression, as we have an increase in spermidine, we have an increase of autophagy, which eventually leads to a decrease in tumor growth. So autophagy is really important in that process. We see spermidine playing an important role in immune modulation. In fact, we have a paper I'm going to talk about a paper that dropped last night, but we have another paper coming out that we're doing an experiment right now in Britain looking at COVID vaccination response, whether someone's supplementing with spermidine or without. We've got some evidence that says supplementing with spermidine improves immune modulation. We see it playing a part in cardio protection. We see it playing a role in the heart. And particularly, you have little energy producers in your cells called mitochondria. And when you have old, sluggish mitochondria around, they make the other mitochondria around them old and sluggish. Autophagy cleans out the old mitochondria, gives you a chance to grow big, which improves your energy. And this is where we see an improvement in cardio protection. We've got some really interesting research going on in Berlin looking at neuroprotection, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But most importantly, as we take a look at this last cell here, this last picture, when we see spermidine, we see an increase of autophagy at a stem cell level. And with this stem cell improvement, we see an improvement in hair follicles. So one of the first things that our customers are reporting as seeing a change when they start taking it is an improvement in hair and nails. And this is one of the first things that we can notice. So we have a lot of customers that'll tell us, hey, we started taking it. I didn't really notice anything until I went to get my hair cut, and the gal that cuts my hair was raving about how good my hair felt. So, or you see nails grow quite a bit. So it's this epithelial stem cell support that we start to see those effects take place.
So what you're talking about, Don, is something that not only helps you with your longevity, but can help you with things like your hair, can help you with things like your nails, basically help you renew a lot of the cells in your body, help you rebuild a lot of the.
Yeah, well, and
Mark,
really Mark, we didn't talk about this one yet, but this study dropped last night, and this is in Cell Reports. So Cell Magazine is a prestigious scientific magazine. And we had this article on dietary spermidine improving cognitive function. Now, when we go into this article a little bit, what we see is that elevated spermidine intake improves cognitive function in flies and mice. Now, I don't know how they do that, but they've got a way to do that. But more importantly, dietary spermidine intakes correlated with cognitive performance in humans. So we're seeing a direct correlation between spermidine content and things like memory and decisioning and the issues that we deal with as we move into our third of life. Literally, this article dropped last night, and we're really excited about it. There were 27 different universities that participated in this study, and we're just really excited about it.
You know, most of the studies I find fascinating. Most of the studies are all being done in Europe.
Well, yeah, and I maybe that's because we're a European company.
Well, I think the other side of it too is Europe spends a lot of time looking at things like this. Again, a lot of the holistic medicines. We in the United States tend to try to follow a philosophy of one problem, one pill. Or over there, they kind of look at what caused that problem, how do we get to the root of it, and how do we solve it at that level?
Well, one of the beauties I think that's exactly spot on, Mark. And one of the beauties of this is when we start to look at the molecular basis of anti-aging and we look at the effects of spermidine, there's just a lot of science to support it. And in fact, in the abstract of this article, they state that spermidine is a natural occurring, it's what's called a polyamine. That's the class of molecules that it comes from, has emerged as exhibiting anti-aging properties. And we can debate whether again, I'm pro-aging. I am pro-healthy aging though. Its supplementation increases lifespan and resistance to stress and decreases the occurrence of age-related pathology and loss of locomotor ability, which is, which again, I'm all about that third. I want to be dancing with my grandkids and my great grandkids at their weddings. I'm an athlete. I got a chance to coach my daughter. My daughter's now 23. I'm looking forward to coaching my grandkids and my great grandkids. So that's what I'm really focused on.
You brought up something interesting. It's not a matter of just having a longer life. It's a matter of having a longer life that's a quality life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, who wants to live another 30 years if it's going to be in a hospital?
Right.
I want to live another 30 years, dancing around the edge of the Grand Canyon or pushing things or skiing or doing, again, going to my grandkids events and my great grandkids events. I want to be that crazy old granddad that gets thrown out of ball games. So let me try and move through here a little bit. So this is our last paper, and again, it really says it. This is in Cell Biology. One of the things that I've been most impressed with this company, these papers are not being published in secondary journals. We're in Cell, and we're in Nature, and we're in Science, and this is really good science. And with the induction of autophagy, and what we found is that the administration of spermidine, the natural polyamine, whose intracellular concentration declines with age, markedly extended lifespan of yeast, flies, worms, and this was measured into human immune cells as well. We can't do research studies on longevity in humans because you have to have a control group, and that's just not nice to do. But finally, they found that enhanced autophagy is a crucial polyamine-induced suppression of necrosis, which leads to enhanced longevity. So a lot of these neural breakdowns, Marc, we live in a society where we have all the energy we need. In fact, it's to the point to where it's almost energy toxic. And the ability to increase the spermidine, which increases autophagy, is one of those huge benefits. And they attribute it to one of the big differences in the blue zones.
You might mention what blue zones are. These are areas where people have lived exceptionally long.
Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning. There's a really good book. If you're looking at this, it's called Blue Zones, and they've just done a really nice job of identifying these populations. And there's definitely a dietary change, and we definitely see an increase in natural spermidine in those populations. But you know what? The rest of us don't live in blue zones, and we got to figure out how to make a blue zone in our own house.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned, it's not a matter of just getting older. It's a matter of enjoying the quality of life.
Absolutely.
Being able to walk, being able to enjoy your kids, being able to play golf better.
Absolutely.
I don't know that I can 9 holes, you're playing 12 or 13, or you're playing 18 type of thing.
I don't know if I can promise golf better. So spermidineLIFE, this is the product that we've developed. And where spermidineLIFE comes from is it is an extract from wheat germs. So in Europe, in Central Europe, so we're in Austria, Switzerland, Northern Italy, Southern Germany, we are getting spermidine-rich wheat. And that's where we start. So we test there. Then we take that wheat down to the wheat germ. So we pull the part of the wheat out that it's the fatty part of the germ in the seed of the cell, and we extract that, and we test at that level too. So we test the wheat that comes in, we test the wheat germ, and then it goes into an extraction process that only includes water. The only solvent we use to extract the spermidine richness into our what's called the Cell additive is water. everything is clinically tested. And you kind of see the research. We're a very scientific company. So everything's clinically tested.
Gina asked a really good question on this slide. It says, is the product organically sourced?
So organic, whether things are organic in Europe and things in organic in the States are different. So we can't make an organic claim in the States, but we are organic in Europe.
Yeah,
just because of the two governing bodies.
The bar for being organic in Europe, interestingly enough, is much higher. I lived in Switzerland for 6 years, and everything was organic. You didn't even have a question. They don't have food over there that's not organic. They don't have products over there that are not organic. Unfortunately, here in the United States, they tried to regulate that term because a lot of products aren't that way, and they're trying to hide behind that.
And we just can't claim it because of the change in jurisdiction.
Right.
So a lot of scientific research. We use 100% raw materials. We'll talk more about that as we go. It's available prescription free. So there's we're not in, you're able to get it without a prescription, no sugar, lactose free. If you do have issues with gluten, we have a very, very, very small gluten portion. We're not low enough to be called gluten free yet. We're working on that, but we have a lot of celiac patients using our product, doing very well with it, but you've got to be careful. And we recommend working with your healthcare provider before you make that decision.
Sure.
So we add a vitamin and we add a mineral to both the spermidine, and the fatty acids are coming from the wheat germ, but oops, that's not what I wanted. But the vitamin, the mineral, so we add thiamine and we add zinc, which enhance the autophagenic portion ability of spermidine.
I want to go back to Gina's question for a second about organic. In Europe, they basically, everything is organic. That's just the way it is. They will not allow products to be sold that aren't necessarily sourced organically. Like I said, here in the United States, a lot of companies are trying to make claims, and they really haven't. Again, the food companies, who, by the way, have passed legislation in the United States to not let you know to label your product, not let you know what's in it, just to tell you how restricted we are here, have really stopped us from being able to do a lot of things. But it would be highly surprising that any wheat product coming out of especially Switzerland, Germany, that type of thing, isn't not only 100% organic, but also probably far exceeds anything you'll find here, which is why you probably can't find the raw material here in the quantities you need.
Well, we've started trying to source it, and the glyphosate, the Roundup levels are so high, we just can't create the product in the States right now.
Now, Roundup is that pesticide, right?
Right. It's glyphosate is the name of the pesticide.
Yeah, which, by the way, in Europe, to my knowledge, Roundup was thrown out of the market years ago.
There's still a little bit of it over there because we have to be careful about it. But yeah, it's so thick in the States, we can't do it.
Right. So
as we close up, Judy, I see your question here. Can someone participate in the study in the States? Right now, we don't have any US based studies taking place. We're doing some question and answer things with our customers, trying to follow up, but right now the science is coming out of Austria and Germany. So if we do, if you'll go to our website, which is spermidineLIFE.us, and this is important, .us.com will take you to our European site. .us brings you to this site. We have a huge amount of questions and answers and blogs and things like that if you have questions. Now, what we want to do for those of you that logged into the presentation today, if you make a purchase, you use the code Florida20, you'll get a 20% discount on that purchase. And that there's no limit to the number of bottles that you would buy at that time. You'll get a 20% discount. And this is the only better discount that we offer on this right now is if you buy a year's worth. So if you buy a year's worth of the product, we'll give you a 25% discount. But if you just want to get started, you can use Florida 20 and get a 20% discount on this.
Now, I think also one of the things we're trying to promote is for the people who do purchase the product, we'd like to have them 3 to 4 weeks after they start taking it. You're going to actually ask them to take some survey information so we gather some information on the product.
Yep, we'll play you if you make the product, and not only that, we want to know what's going on. So you'll get an invitation to make a call, to have a call with us. So it's either going to be with me or Eric. We're following up with we're following up with as many of our customers as we can. We want to make sure things are going well. We want to learn about how you're using it and the effects that you're seeing. This is important to us. So we really have we have a significant amount of energy going into doing that.
Yeah, we also have a website. It's a spermidineLIFE.us/villages.
Yep. And so if you have friends or if someone wants to know more, you can go to the Villages site and that will come with an automatic 10% discount if you make a purchase from there. But like I said, for participating in the presentation tonight, we scared up a little bit more of a discount for you.
And as a follow-up, you'll get an email from us that'll actually not only point you to the website, that'll have a copy of this video, it'll have the copy of the presentation and also the reference material, but it'll also have that coupon code in it. So you can, and that goes out to the people that have participated in the webinar tonight. But I think what you're trying to do, Don, is really get good feedback. I know, and I'll speak of myself. You know, we met a couple months ago and you were kind enough to send me some product, and which I'm running out of, by the way. I got to talk to you about that.
I'll fix that.
But I have found myself, there's really been 3 things that have helped me with, and I'm just speaking off the cuff. This is unsolicited. My hair quality has gotten better. My nails have gotten better. I've had a problem with brittle nails, and that's almost all gone away. But I think also my ability, my strength is getting better.
Good.
And I say that because I did something crazy. I took up martial art. I took up Tai Chi, but I took up the Yang version of Tai Chi, which is the wash on, wash off kind of thing, which is, you know, it's not the community center where you kind of wave your arms around. This is the serious stuff. And I've noticed that my strength level, especially in my legs, has made a big difference. The quality of my ability to walk and be able to get my balance has really made a big difference.
Autophagy is a big deal. And I think, you know what, in another 5 or 10 years, we're going to be looking at autophagy as a nutrient. Mm-hmm. You know, right now we talk about nutrients as are in the things that we eat. But with what we're learning about autophagy, I've got a feeling when we teach nutrition, we're going to be teaching the value of not eating at certain times.
Right. Well, and of course, it's not a matter of not eating, it's a matter of when you eat. You know.
Yeah.
You know, having a big meal and heading to bed is not healthy. But
the rest of the world, listen, the world's known this for a long time. Every major religion has a fasting period. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, just it gets shrunk down, but you know, there's value in that. And at the same time, you know what? You know, when I was living in Florida, I was living by myself. I wasn't adjusting to my wife or my daughter. And, you know, fasting for me, I could set a routine. It was much easier. Back up here, I'm adjusting to my wife's schedule. I'm adjusting to my daughter's schedule. You know what? Sometimes fasting's hard. And having some spermidine there to support is good.
Sure. Well, and again, it's not when by fasting, I think good fasting, not just less food calorie intake, but when you eat type of thing. I know when I lived in Switzerland, I was literally 20 to 25 pounds lighter. And when I talked to doctors about it, it had to do with the fact that they didn't have any things in the food. The food was all organic. It made a huge difference. And I didn't have to look at labels. It was just all that way. They wouldn't let a product in the store that wasn't organic. And the Swiss eat in the middle of the day. Their big meal was between 12 and 2 o'clock. And in the evening, we would have salads or something like that. And a little wine, of course, or beer, depending on the village you were in. But it was very interesting. I would come back after being in Switzerland for 10 months, 12 months, and 2 weeks after being in the U.S., I'd find myself gaining weight because like you mentioned, my diet, my pattern was thrown off.
Well, and it contributes to stress and inflammation and pain. There's a lot of things that contribute there.
Sure. Well, Don, thank you. I know that we'll send out to everybody who's here. We'll be sending out some information so they can follow up, and I'd recommend trying it. I mean, it's something that you don't have to wait 3 months or 5 months to find out. I'll guarantee you, after a week or two, you'll see a big difference in your body. You'll see a big difference in You'll see it in your nails, your hair. You see it in your energy level. It'll help quite a bit. And I'm just speaking of myself.
And don't forget that Florida 20. I mean, it's a good discount. Take advantage of it. Thank you for being here. That's why we put it on there.
Right. So cool. Well, listen, we don't have any more questions. Is there any last statement you'd like to make, Don?
No, listen, I really appreciate what you guys do. If anybody has questions, let us know. You can go to our website and hit our chat bot if you need to, or if you want to contact me directly, excuse me, you can get me at don.moxley@spermidineLIFE.us.
And we should point out two things. Number one, this webinar will be repeated on May 12th. So if you liked what you saw, tell your friends. Please join us on May 12th. We're going to actually have this webinar will be repeated. And then also the webinar will be available online, and we'll actually send it out to you, and you'll be able to see it and follow it up. So listen,
everybody, enjoy this Florida evening.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I know it's an interesting topic, an interesting subject. Don, thank you for bringing it to us. Much appreciated. And please, everybody, we look forward to your comments, look forward to your questions. And again, thank you for joining us in this evening.
Here's to a great third, right?
You got that right. Amen. Thank you. We'll be in touch. Thank you.